Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the United States of a Movie podcast. We're the movie podcast that makes every Monday a fun day as we get together and we talk movies. But of course, we have a purpose here at the United States of a Movie, as we are the podcast trying to find one movie to define each state in these United States. We've already done one trip around the country. We're currently on our second, and today we stop off in the state of New Mexico. So, of course, we're going to watch Oppenheimer 17 more times and talk about that at length. No, we are not, but we'll get to that in a moment. First of all, let's welcome back my amazing co-host, as always. Ryan, how you doing, buddy? Welcome back to the show.
It's great to be here. It's great to have you back. You were in Thailand putting the white in White Lotus, I assume?
I am still translucent. Can you not see my tan? Yes, it's good to be back. I'm fighting the jet lag. How did the Predator episode go?
Man, off the charts, yeah. Bad. We desperately needed you back.
I want to say we got record-breaking numbers in the worst way possible. Yeah. Either people are anti-Predator or just don't like Will and I.
Both are very equally possible.
Well, at least I didn't have to watch The Predator, is all I picked out on that particular one. And of course, Will, welcome back to the show as well, as always, sitting in the middle of his very own DVD den in the middle of Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, great to be here, but much like a character in one of our movies, I'm stuck in a hole and everyone else is having fun but me. So.
Oh, man. Yeah, he's referencing a movie that I literally just watched. I got done with it about half an hour ago. It was a banger, though. In fact, let's just jump right into it. Tell us about this movie, because I'd never heard of it, and it was a great watch.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it. It's a Billy Wilder film. Billy Wilder, one of the best directors of old school Hollywood, writer-directors. If you've never heard of him, you've definitely heard of his movies. Sunset Boulevard, Some Like It Hot, The Apartment. Like those are the big ones. This is one of his, I think it's one of his best films, but it's not talked about as much. It's Ace in the Hole from 1951, I think, starring Kirk Douglas. Star of like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Spartacus.
Yeah, and he was so good. I was like watching that, maybe the first Kirk Douglas movie I've actually properly watched, and I just could not get over how much Michael Douglas resembles him.
It's crazy, yeah.
His cadence, like everything. I was like, it's like watching a young Michael Douglas.
It's weird. I mean, he was in The Final Countdown as well, wasn't he? I think, which is a great movie if you've never seen it, Ryan. Which we're going to do for Hawaii, actually. It's where they go back in time from like the USS Enterprise, like with like F-14 Tomcats, and they have the opportunity to stop Pearl Harbor.
You lost me at USS Enterprise.
No, not that Enterprise.
Not that one.
It's a different one. I promise.
Ace in the Hole. I mean, it was written, produced, and directed by Billy Wilder.
It's crazy.
This is my first Wilder movie, and it was pretty banging. I did suggest that instead of being called Ace in the Hole, it should be called Pieces of Shit. Because this is one bleak ass movie, man. This is dark.
It reminded me of, I was thinking of like a Twilight Zone episode or something like that. It was darker than I had anticipated.
Yeah, it's funny because like the movie he did before this is Sunset Boulevard, which is known for being like a dark noir, like, and everyone loved that movie. And then he's like, I'm going to go even harder with like way worse people. And it's like,
just, it's like Always Sunny in Philadelphia levels of people being pieces of shit. Because, basically what it does, it tells the story of Charles Chuck Tatum. He's as he likes to think of it, kind of like a big shot journalist, but he's been kind of fired from 11 major newspapers because of his behavior. I mean, he turns up. I mean, the opening scene is he kind of like he's being sort of pulled by a pickup, that's because his car's broken down. He's in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He walks into the newspaper and he goes, "Hey, I like to drink, fuck, and lie. Give me a job." And the guy's like, "You're hired."
And he's also a terrible negotiator. He gets his way into the office, like, "Hey, how would you like to make $200 a week or $1,000?" I don't know.
Yeah, $200 a week. I cost $250 a week. You can have me.
But he talks himself down to like $40.
Yeah. Well, the guy clearly needed a job.
Right.
And he's a newspaper man. And I honestly thought that this was going to be like a Kirk Douglas movie where he's going to sort of like root out corruption. It's going to be like journalistic integrity. And this movie is the exact opposite. It's about having absolutely no journalistic integrity and just calls out people, the media, and if it bleeds, it leads, to show that fundamentally everybody is a piece of shit.
It just shows how corrupt the media is, the local government. Like, that would never happen.
Yeah, could you imagine?
Yeah. He does a podcast now.
Here he's running for president. This movie was, again, like I went in and I was kind of caught off guard. I in the beginning I was a little bit like, wow, this is like a really exposition heavy stage play. Because for the first 10 minutes or so, Kirk Douglas is very much just kind of like, he's just doing it. Yeah, he's just walking around the room and he's calling people out. And
I was going to say that first monologue that he has, which is all one take, like you appreciate, I think we brought this up too, like movies from back then were so efficient that you would never see a scene shot like that now that feels like a stage play where he's walking around the room doing this insane monologue, flirting with the woman, which was fucking hysterical.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's all great blocking as well.
Yeah.
It's really well shot. It looks really, there's stuff going on in the background. In fact, like that goes through the whole movie.
Yeah.
There's maybe a couple of shots where they've got rear projection for driving or stuff like that. But there were a couple of incredible shots. And the one I'm going to just jump straight to right now is that incredible shot when the train pulls up at the station. You've got the dad in the foreground handing out the drinks on top of this mountain. You've got 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 extras, all these cars down at the bottom. You got the road and then a train pulls up. And it's the kind of stuff that we haven't seen since Giant, where we had that incredible shot with the train in the background as well. I mean, back in the day, old Hollywood, they went for it, didn't they? That shit was legit.
Yeah, and right in the middle of a desert too. Like they had to like bus all these extras and tents and cars, all this stuff they had to get out there. It's crazy.
Did you reckon they just built that carnival and just like said to the extras, "Come by, have fun, and we'll just roll cam" or something like that?
Probably would have been easier, just to do it that way. But
so the inciting incident. So this movie, it's really, really cracking. Is like, so we like I said, we see Kirk Douglas turn up and goes, "Hey, I'm a newspaper guy." Gets hired. Very next scene, we've jumped a year into the future, and he's just like, I'm so bored. All I'm doing is just boring stories. And he's sent to go and do like a rattlesnake roundup while he's on the way with the young Jimmy Olsen, but not,
basically,
the photographer of the local paper. They stop in at this like sundries place, this kind of like Native American. Oh, I forgot to mention, he's very casually racist to all Native Americans.
Oh yeah, everyone.
Yeah, that's a little. But we stop in at this place about 3 hours outside of about Albuquerque, and like Will says, it's right in the middle of nowhere. Can't get service in this place. So turns up Jan Sterling. And it turns out her husband is stuck in a cave-in, and he smells a story. So he goes climbing into this thing after treating the local cop like a real piece of shit. Like, wow, you can talk to
I mean, he's
like
just
that?
a fucking report, because he's from New York, and that's just how we are, apparently.
Right. He does that, big city talk. But he climbs into this mine, finds the guy who's trapped, takes his picture, and he smells a story.
I want to say, like, before they go into the mine, this was just so funny to me. Like, his wife packs him, like, goods because he's been stuck in there for however long, number of hours.
Like, overnight. Yeah.
Right. And they pack him a sandwich, a blanket, cigars, and a thermos of coffee. Yeah. You would think like it's hot as shit in there, like hot coffee.
That's
like,
what I
water.
thought too.
No water.
No water.
This movie like really loves coffee.
This convinced me. I thought at the time, I'm like, water must not have been purified back then, and people were like, the only way to purify it is to make it coffee.
Yeah. I'm amazed they didn't just say he needs some cocaine about it. He'll do some fine. But like, so he goes in, gets a picture of the guy, and this is kind of where the movie...
Weird photo to smile at too.
Like... Yeah, it's like, hey, take a picture. You're going to be famous
with his antique, the pot that he. It's like he goes in there to collect Native American artifacts to then sell at his local store. Right?
So that's what he was doing. So this guy who's
totally
the husband,
normal.
He's basically grave robbing Native Americans to sell for a little bit of profit. And so that's what Kirk Douglas does. He spins it. Oh, think about it like King Tut. It's like a curse from the natives. This guy's trapped. And so the guy, like, he's like, oh, I'm going to be in the paper. Doesn't even suggest save me. He goes, yeah, take my picture. But basically, Kirk Douglas is like, look, here we go. If we make this story last a week, if we turn the screws on this one, if we make it a big story, it's going to be good for you. It's going to be good for me. Your sundry store is going to be making money. And it turns out they could rescue him in about 15 hours. But he goes, no, don't do that. Let's make it really, really hard. Let's drill down to save him, and let's make this a circus. Yeah. And it just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, he brings in like the engineer, and the guy's like, "Why would we do that? That's insane." But then he's also on the side of the sheriff, right? Who's running again. He just manipulates everybody into keeping this man in the cave to write a story about it. Fuck yeah.
Even roping in the wife, like, no, you're not leaving your husband. You're going to be. That
was arguably the easiest rope in, right? Because she's like, fuck. She was looking this as an opportunity to get out, and he's like, no, you don't understand. We're all going to make a ton of money in this. And then you see like all these people come into town to get a glimpse of this cave that this man is stuck in because they're writing about it.
And not just to get a look at like eventually at a certain point, it doesn't even become like the guy in the cave is like really, that's not why everyone's there. A real like county fair like sprouts up around it. Like there are rides that people are going on. People are eating like corn dogs and cotton candy.
I like the thing that they do that you see the progression, because when you first get to this cave site, it's free. And then it becomes 25 cents, then it's $1 to
50 cents, then $1, and then it's like, and like there's even then the song gets written, and then that's the sort of theme for the. I was actually humming that like after the movie. I was like sitting in the kitchen just.
It's a banger. Like it's about a guy dying in a cave, but you're like, it kind of slaps.
It's a good song. And it's just, you can't believe, I mean, well, you can actually, you know, what are we talking about in 2025? Oh, corruption and money. And it's very much like an indictment of the idea of just like, you know, power corrupts or money corrupts, and pure capitalism, like I've talked about before, the whole idea of capitalism with a capital C, you know, making money at the expense of others. And it's like, and you're just seeing how, you know, as it's going on, and it's quite interesting actually, because like I was the what do you call it, the darkness of the soul or something like that. You know, if you're writing, usually at the end of Act 2, you have the dark night of the soul. There we go, and it's like, you know, and it sets up like, all right, maybe there's going to be some redemption. No, it goes and pushes it and pushes it and pushes it and pushes it and pushes it, and so basically the end of the movie, and then it's like, fuck you all, we fucked you, you're all terrible people. But it's like you're seeing how much Kirk Douglas is being ensnared by this story, and now he's important, and he's making sure none of the other news guys can get in. And then the wife is just, you know, she's basically staring at money and just rubbing it on her face, just going, oh my God, I'm so horny for money. And like, you know, you see the sheriff going, oh, I'm going to get reelected. And it's just, you start feeling dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. And I just wasn't expecting it to go so hard.
Yeah, the only good person is the guy stuck in the cave, and it does not end well for him.
It does not. So yeah, I mean, like, Will, tell me about like where you discovered this movie. When did you see it? And like, you know, what kind of brought you to sort of bring this one to the table?
This actually goes back to like when everybody started doing lockdown, and we were all just trapped in our homes for months on end, and I just started doing a thing where I was like,
I want to watch movies about people trapped.
Yeah, exactly. No, I just would like do a thing where every month I would like pick a filmmaker whose filmography I wasn't very familiar with, and I'm like, all right, let's just bang through like 5 or 6 of their movies and see what they're about. And I landed on Billy Wilder, and I went through a month where I watched like 10 of his movies, and this was one of them. And not all of them are perfect, but there was like a time where like 5, 6, 7 movies of his in a row, I was like, oh my God, this guy can't miss. And this was in there. And it totally blew me away that like this one is not the one that's talked about. Because everybody talks about Some Like It Hot, which they should. That's a movie about guys cross-dressing as women in like the 50s. Right. And it ages really well, which is shocking and is very, very funny. The Apartment's also incredible. So I was just going through, and everybody talks about those, but like nobody except for Spike Lee. No one talks about this movie. Like this is like Spike Lee's favorite film, which is so strange because there's not one racist Italian in the entire film.
But it says like after the film was released, it got bad reviews, lost money. Now, an interesting thing about it is I saw is that without Wilder's permission, the studio changed the name to The Big Carnival. instead of Ace in the Hole, which no.
Terrible.
Fucking
Yeah.
awful name.
Terrible title.
The funny, I was always wondering why it was called Ace in the Hole. One, going into it, I just assumed the guy's name was going to be
Jeff
Ace.
Ace. Yeah.
Ace is in the hole, guys.
Ace Ventura, obviously.
Yeah.
Ace Hole. Yeah. Yeah. But the way that he comes up with the line "Ace in the Hole" is maybe one of my favorite scenes. You know, the area is picking up steam. People are coming in. The sheriff is at the diner with a box with the rattlesnake in it.
Yeah.
Which is fucking crazy to me. A restaurant full of people.
Carries it around for the whole movie.
He's just trying to feed it. Like, I do wish we would have gotten. I was kind of curious. Like, what is this rattlesnake festival?
Yeah, is it an allegory for something? Is it, is it just? I was trying to find if there was something to it as well.
Yeah. I think just
a big deal because he's like all the doctors are there. Like everyone's like the governor, the mayor's there, whatever.
Yeah,
like it's just a big thing. I don't know. But
yeah,
so that scene with him and the rattlesnake was fun.
Well, here we go. So then it said that Wilder's next picture, Starlight 17. That's a banger. Actually, I think I may have actually seen that one. It was a hit, and he went for so where's my profits? And Paramount went, no, the last movie we lost so much money, we're taking your losses out of your profits for this one, which is pretty messed up. But I guess the studio system back there, they had a lot of power. But it's
would never happen today
compared to now, right? Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I mean, considering Lord of the Rings lost money. This movie is really dark and very cynical, and it was apparently that unrelenting cynicism that repulsed audiences, in the 50s. I guess it is 51. We're only 6 years after World War II. And it's like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to leave a veteran buried and kill him. It's like, fundamentally, I can see it is kind of a dark movie.
Yeah. And I also wonder if maybe the actual story kind of, the real life story kind of soured people on it, where they were like, this is a little insensitive. That's something that's not talked about as much, but I'm just thinking back on it, I'm like, I wonder if that did play into its failure a little bit, where it might have been like Hollywood's making a movie about this like tragedy that actually happened. Like, that's a little crass.
Well, so hang on,
Hollywood would never do that.
Right.
They're making it as it's happening. But no, actually, Will, do me a favor. I have no idea what you're talking about. So educate me about this.
So it's loosely based on a true story. I think it happened. I'm going to get this wrong. I think it happened in the 20s or 30s or something like that. It was prior to World War II, I believe. And again, I might be wrong. If you've been on YouTube and the internet, you've probably saw there was a very famous plagiarized video essay about this event, about a guy who got stuck in a cave who he didn't own a
Collins,
shop.
It seems.
Yeah.
And you were right. It was 1925.
Yeah, there we go. And he did this as like a hobby. He would like cave dive and explore as a hobby. And, we worked at Right This Minute. And as we know, every cave diver eventually comes into like some sort of disaster where it's like, oh my God, he's trapped for his life. And it's like, yeah, this happens to all of you. I don't know why none of you learn, but he got stuck, and there was a big effort to try to get him out of there. And it lasted a long time. And there were songs written about it. There was kind of like this media circus that grew up around it. The difference is in real life, though, and I wonder what the journalist who was mainly covering the event was actually trying to get him out, like was not trying to build up the circus at all. He was legitimately like trying to get this guy help, and didn't work. And he was depressed about it for the rest of his life.
Okay, so actually there is quite a lot of overlap. Okay, so it's a pretty interesting story. Is that, here we go. So from William Floyd Collins, cave explorer, like you were saying, and during the Kentucky Cave Wars, basically there was a bit of competition about exploiting the bounty of caves for commercial profit. Now, not necessarily like grave robbing, but finding amazing caves that you could get tourists into. Right. So Collins discovered and commercialized apparently the Great Crystal Cave and stuff like that. And so he was just looking for, I need to make some more money, trying to find a cave. He's widening something. It went a bit wrong, and there was a media circus about it. Now, it's not like he was being exploited necessarily like it is in the movie, but it was the very first sort of like national media circus because they were using the new technology of broadcast radio in 1925. So they were able to get him food and water, but it took He died, yes, of thirst and hunger and hypothermia after he was there for 14 days. 3 days before they were able to get to him, his body was recovered 2 months later. So I can see, there's a lot of overlap, and they just added, how about like 3 more layers of cynicism and correction on top of this?
Yeah, what if everyone involved was a piece of shit? That was kind of the exaggeration. And like I said, the actual reporter was like really, really trying to like lead the charge to get this guy out. I think actually went down there like in a few attempts to pull him out and that were unsuccessful. And I think he got injured too. So I would have liked to have seen that journalist reaction to this movie where Kirk Douglas is like, hey, by the way, you suck.
Yeah. Well, it's like, interesting. I think a reason as well that maybe audiences back then probably didn't go for it as much as like we were kind of open to it is because as bad as all these corrupt people are, the 20,000 people that turn up to Gork, are just as guilty. The people like listening at home in a way are just as guilty. The newspaper men in New York and Boston and Chicago are just as guilty because you feel kind of sick to your stomach when, and I go back to that shot I referenced right at the beginning when we were talking about this, but that incredible shot, the train's pulling up. Now the dad of the guy trapped, or maybe it's the father-in-law, I can't tell, but I think it was the father. He's up giving refreshments to these guys who are rescuing, or at least slowly rescuing his son. In the far distance, this train pulls up, and then you see written on the side, it's whatever the guy's name, Express. And it's just this disgusting moment, even though a fantastic shot of, they just start running off the train and sprinting towards this carnival. And as it just pulls back and you just see the scope and the scale of this with a Ferris wheel going and the happy music playing. And you're just like,
on this like ancient 450-year-old burial ground,
Indian burial ground. Yeah.
It's funny enough. It's kind of reminiscent of like these days, something like that comes to mind for me is something like the Fire Festival, which was like a big disaster of an event. And then the moment Billy McFarland comes out of jail, he's like, we're going to do it again. And there is all this interest of people who like, they just want to be involved in the moment. And it's like, guys, the moment was horrible. Like, what are you doing?
It's so funny you say that. That like right before we logged on, that was the very last thing I saw is at Fire Festival 2, and they put some like coordinates, and people have found, but it's just in water. There's no, like, they've already fucked up. They've put the wrong coordinates out there. People are just going to drown.
Yeah, I would say an article next year, like 20,000 people drowned simultaneously.
Just can't wait to see like, Mr. Beast go to the Fire Festival 2 and into the ocean. That's going to be, what a great use of everyone's time.
But you're right. I mean, like, because that was very much my thinking, is that I was sort of watching these people running to get to this. And I said, it's no different. And I go, because I was also thinking, is like, I'm just not one of those people. I don't try to be like to get in, I got to see it. I can't miss it. I got to be involved. And you just realize how many sheep there are in the world, or manipulatable people, and how nothing has changed. Nothing.
Yeah. I was going to say, you think too, because it was in the 50s, you're like, well, they really didn't have a lot going on at that time.
Not a lot to do.
That's why this is like, you think like this is like national news for people to just come to this very small town outside Albuquerque to hang out near an ancient burial ground where a man is stuck.
Yeah, it's a viral story.
Yeah.
So them turning up, I guess, is as much as we are as guilty of being on our Twitter thread and watching some abominable, video or story or something else like that. That's why, like, in the world we live in today, I suppose I try to be so much more conscientious and try to be like, with the stuff even I put out with this podcast or with what I do with my videos, is like, let's do something positive. Let's do something like just something to bring people together, because there's so much garbage out there.
That's why our last episode didn't do so great.
we just cynically fuck the Predator.
Making people relive the Predator. We got over this already. Why are you bringing it up?
That's all right. Put it on Twitter. It'll blow up. They'll love it. So, but it gets worse. Like, I mean, a real like shocking, I thought shocking, but it gets worse moment. But like, so we're about like, halfway into the movie, and she's realizing, the wife has just done the math, and she's realized, oh my God, I'm going to make $1,000. I've never had $1,000 in my life. And she's there and she's smiling and she's excited. And Kirk Douglas just bitch slaps her twice in the face. She's not smiling. Goes, that's better. No smiling while your husband's trapped.
Yeah, jeez.
Yeah, that was
Put your wedding ring on and start crying. I'm like, what is this? Sean Connery in a Bond movie from the 60s?
Right. Or in his real life? Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah, that was pretty. I mean, that scene where he like slaps her like rapid fire. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it's really, and
you don't get that in movies anymore.
well, I was gonna say, like, unlike most movies in like the 50s, it's not played for like, haha, the woman's out of control. It's played for like what it is, which is like, no, this guy sucks.
Yeah,
Like,
so manipulative.
She sucks too, though, and it's and it just keeps going, because that's what I mean. Is like, so we get there. I mean, like the way I wrote it, I'm rich, I'm happy, and I just wrote slap, you know, like in absolutely capital letters. But that's where I said, surely this all has to come crashing down. And then the very next scene is the carnival turns up, and I'm like, how far is this movie going to take it? I had no idea. That.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it gets drip fed to you, because like that the first day or after the first article is written, a family shows up. They're on their way to go kayaking or canoeing, and they're like, "Hey, we've read the news. We're here. We want to see the cave and then maybe get breakfast." And the woman is she's trying to like leave town, and that you get the shot of the bus pulling up, and then it pulls away, and she's just walking
I like
back
that
to the
shot.
restaurant.
Yeah.
There was one shot that was very funny to me when you first meet the wife. She's carrying like an apple, and then as the scene kind of fades out, she just bites into it in the most aggressive way. I was
but there you go. Well, no, right. But we've got the serpent with the snake, and we've got the apple, and she's taking the bite of the apple. It's
metaphor.
Like, that's right, you know. But I'm saying is, I reckon that's exactly what's going on. I also noticed something else. So we skipped.
There's just no sexy way to bite into an apple.
right.
Challenge accepted. Get me an apple. No, so when he first goes into the New Mexico, so it's the Albuquerque, Baltimore Sun, whatever it's called. The publisher, so there's a thing on the wall that says "Tell the truth,"
Yeah.
and it's like it's what the publisher says, and the lady that works in the store that is a little bit wet for Kirk Douglas through the whole movie she's like hand stitched.
Understandable.
Yeah, I get it. He's a handsome man. But like she's like hand stitched it, and so. But I noticed, you know, it's very prominent with the publisher. But the publisher or whatever, the editor, the guy that runs the paper,
right?
He turns up later in the movie. At this point, Kirk Douglas has already quit, by the way, because he's going to exploit the situation. But if you notice that, like, whenever that guy was talking, he had "Tell the Truth" over his shoulder, or he had like a crucifix or the Virgin Mary over his shoulder. Like this guy, who's the guy going, "Not with my paper. This is not how you do it." He's calling him out on his stuff. He's always got these things behind him, like the judgment of the Lord is coming for you, Kirk. You not see this? And I thought, like, that was
cool.
Really nice.
And when he tries to call him out for drinking on the job, but he's just got a ship in a bottle. And he's like, "Oh, that's really cool." And that was it. That's the end of it.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's only a little bit after that it's like, oh, here we go. Here's the consequences of my actions. It all starts getting like, even for Kirk Douglas, he's like realizing, okay, this is getting a bit messed up because the guy who's trapped, he's like developing pneumonia and he's going to be dead in 12 hours. But then he's also doing the thing of like, by the way, it's my 5th wedding anniversary today. Wouldn't it have been nice to get out today? But can you make sure my wife gets that gift that I got her up the stairs, cut to Kirk Douglas going in, finds the guy's wife cutting her hair to make Kirk Douglas happy, going, "Hey, baby, I'm going to get that brown hair and we're going to run away to New York." He goes into the cupboard. He finds what is, admittedly not the greatest fur thing, but it's what the guy could afford. She is such a bitch about it. And we get to the point of, all right, prepare yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, because I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
She's got it on. Kirk Douglas forces it around her neck, starts choking her with it, going, you're gonna take this and you're gonna like it. And then she fucking stabs him. And I'm like, whoa, this movie's crazy.
And then and then you see him slowly die for 40 minutes.
For a long time.
To a point where I'm like, in a normal movie like this, you would see like blood, right? Because she stabbed him in like the stomach. You just see him like kind of like holding his tummy a little bit.
It's only at the very end of the movie that you get the sight of blood, and I wonder if that's a censor thing, from 51.
Sure.
Yeah,
but
I think it might have been a style thing, but this is another entry in the Billy Wilder people slowly dying over the course of the entire movie genre. This is also Double Indemnity.
He gets a lot done in that in that amount of time. Like he goes and gets the priest goes back to the cave,
gets the last rites.
People in Billy Wilder films who are mortally wounded at a certain point, they're very efficient with their time. It's
right.
Like I was saying, Double Indemnity.
Wouldn't you be?
The whole conceit of that movie is the guy is telling his story to a wax cylinder, recording his story, and he's dying for the entire film. Yeah. And you're just, after a while, you're like, I'd go to the hospital, buddy. I'd save telling the story.
And his whole thing is, he's like, now I've got an even better story. A journalist tried to fucking slowly murder a man over 6 days.
Well, hang on. We'll get there. No problem. But it's like, yeah, that's kind of like it, because the ending of this movie is really interesting.
Abrupt.
So right after the stabbing, that's why I wrote down as I wrote prediction. The whole mountain is going to cave in on everybody. I kind of felt like it was going to be like everyone was going to pay this, and they were just going to make the whole thing crumble, and thousands of people were going to die for trying to exploit this.
I was hoping Native American ghosts, but sure.
Yeah. Well, I'd say that's what happened. But yeah, no, like you said. So yes, exactly. Then is that Kirk Douglas is like realizing this guy's going to die. He's suddenly like overwhelmed with guilt in a way, goes and gets the priest, gets the last rites. And like, you don't even really like see it. I was like, okay, so is he dying? No, he's dead. But what happens then? Kirk Douglas, again, fantastic shot. Also, great athleticism considering
where he climbs up with the,
he goes up on the crane, really cool. And like incredible, like no health and safety on that set. This is the 50s. No. And then he gives a pretty fucking judgmental speech considering you were the one that caused the guy's death.
Right.
Gets up and goes, "Oh, you! It's you! He's dead! Go home!"
Turn the music down. And you get that shot from the carnival, like looking up to the cave. And he's like, "Yep, he's dead. Get the fuck out of here." And like everyone just disperses immediately.
But it's very like Charlton Heston in like, like as Moses kind of thing. Like it's very that kind of moment. But I was like, dude, I mean, pot calling kettle black. You're a little bit like
this is your fault.
I do wonder if he wasn't like stabbed and injured, would they, even though he had died, would they just keep him down there to keep funneling the money into this like carnival? Like,
yeah, I mean, the
6
really
years later,
really messed up version of the movie is we're keeping him alive.
We're so close to getting him out. We're so close.
Yeah, guys, tomorrow. I promise, guys, tomorrow is going to be the next one.
We got to get a different drill head. Like,
people make it to the first anniversary and they're like, surely he must be.
Well, he's got another fur for her. But no,
he's got a twin brother.
But the way it works as well, as soon as he announces the death, and again, it's kind of like gross. It's just everyone's like leaving. They just leave. There's like a line of cars going. You see his wife just trying to hitchhike out of town. And then, like you said, is that, so then the big news guys come and they just really turn the screw. And oh, how's your big story going, dick? You were a dick to all of us. And like, so he gets the big news guy on the phone and gets his New York editor who he was going to get his job back with. And that, like Ryan says, he's like, oh, I got a story for you. Journalist kills guy, murders guy. No one wants to listen to him. Yeah. And so I do like the way the movie ends. It's kind of, it's very bookended. He pulls up in front in exactly the same way, but different. He goes into the room and it's like, instead of being all like, I know everything, he's staggering around drunk. He's just like, he's just confessing and everything. And like, again, as bleak as the movie goes, then the main character falls down and fucking dies with tell the truth over his shoulder. I mean, like, it's not exactly the most subtle. It's pretty heavy handed, but I was honestly fucking all for it. It's like really, really great.
You could see
movie.
why people back then probably wouldn't have liked.
Yeah, it's fucking dark. It's like it's dark for 2025, man. This is like 74 years ago.
But it was an incredible film.
It really was. I'm so glad you guys liked it. There's always a danger showing like people like older films like this because, frankly, a lot of them are pretty boring,
it's hard to be subjective with stuff like that too, because you've seen so much since then. It's hard to not invite comparisons to older films like that.
Yeah, but when you watch some of Billy Wilder's best work, you understand like why modern directors reference him a lot, and they're like, yeah, that guy was like the best. And this is right up there with him, like his top tier stuff.
Well, look, I mean, like Roger Ebert considers it one of the greatest movies. Kirk Douglas named it as one of his favorite films he's ever done. And like, that, like we're talking about, the production value on it was really quite something. The exterior set, which was 19 miles west of Gallup, apparently, was the largest non-combat set ever constructed. I mean, we are coming out of making World War II movies after World War II, but it was like 235 feet high, 1,200 feet wide, 1,600 feet deep. You had over 1,000 extras, 400 cars, and things like that. And after the film, this is interesting. Paramount. After the film was completed, Paramount charged admission to the set. I mean, it's like, did you not watch the movie? It's like
sometimes it's comforting to know that a big corporation will just never learn, no matter what happens.
There was also Los Alamos reference in this when he's talking about the guys. He's like, you take that cigar and you flick it all the way to Los Alamos, and I forget what he says.
Oppenheimer? Yeah. Them? Oppenheimer, them?
Yeah. And you Oppenheimer, them. Yeah. Them and Heimer.
Oh, dude. Quick aside. On my flight so I was insane. My flight's tired.
Here we go.
It involved a 15, 16-hour flight, right? And I was on Qatar Airways, and what really was driving me a bit up the wall was, and I understand it culturally, okay, I understand, we're flying to the Middle East, it's a Middle Eastern country, that the movies were just butchered. So like, a woman's about to kiss or anything like that, no. Any kind of nudity, no. So I wanted to watch things like Alien Romulus and things like that, and I go, okay, I'm not watching these movies. So I watched movies I've watched before, so I put on Oppenheimer.
It was 30 minutes long.
Well, no, but it was interesting enough. I've never quite seen anything like this. Is that it was pretty butchered. Like, it goes to show that Oppenheimer is still, like I said, one of the best edited movies ever, because it was throwing it off just a little bit. But it's the scenes with Florence Pugh where she's nude. And they have digitally inserted a dress onto her. They've painted, but it's completely flat. Like it's just one of the. It was so amusingly bad. It was.
I remember
funny.
hearing about that because they did that when it came out in the theaters there. Like they had a cut of that.
No
but
shit.
But the Cillian Murphy scene left it alone.
Yeah. Actually, they digitally inserted an extra penis. It was the same as more as they could. Yeah, they put Ben Affleck's penis from Gone Girl and they inserted it into this one. Yeah.
They got the experts at Corridor Crew.
Well, I'll just say I'm glad then I saw Oppenheimer on the Chinese theater on the IMAX. So.
Front row.
Still, honestly, absolute banger. I love that movie. Okay, look, this movie is straight up. I would recommend it, man. It wasn't
for sure.
It was one of those movies I expected to find free on YouTube, and I understood why not when I started watching it, because it's Criterion Collection. This movie gets great reviews online. It's a fantastic watch. I did see it sort of listed as film noir. I would disagree, and honestly, that is something that a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. It's just black and white. Right. But it's just straight up, guys. Like, this is a 100% thumbs up. Watch this movie, and great pick from Will. But we also brought another movie to the table. We're going to go from Billy Wilder to Billy the Kid, because the other movie we brought to the table, I was very excited about this, is the movie from 1988, Young Guns. Now, I cannot remember, I'm still in White Lotus mode. Who had or hadn't seen this movie?
I hadn't seen it. I was familiar with it, but I never watched it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I had seen it before.
Well,
but it had been a while.
Ryan, had you by any chance, knowing your history, seen Young Guns 2 16 times?
No. Damn. The movies, those were never. I mean, maybe they were. Like growing up, I just wasn't really super into Western films, and this movie, I don't think it was really on quite a bit. Otherwise, I probably would have enjoyed it much more. Like had I seen it back then, I'd have different feelings for this. But watching it with a modern lens.
No, interesting. Okay, now I do want to get into this because I saw it, I think, in about 89. It was like just after it came out. I remember being sick at home. Of course,
I watching this. I was like, this is such an Ollie movie.
Yes. I remember drinking a bottle of Lucozade and like watching this, and it was fun, because it was an 18, so I remember this movie kind of scaring me a little bit because there's like, people getting shot in the head, stuff like this. But I always considered, at least when I remembered this movie and saw it, to be like one of those, it's just kind of like a cheesy, in a way, 80s brat packy cowboy movie. It wasn't until later that I started getting into it that I realized that this was regarded as one of the most accurate portrayals of this time, this war, and Billy the Kid up until it was
shit. Up until Bill and Ted's.
Yeah, yes. But so this is the thing. Okay, so this is a movie. It came out in 1988. I love the opening. Where it's like you get but it's like
the shredding guitar. It's so 80s.
It is.
Oh, fucking 80s. And for this type of genre, which took me out of it, like a little bit.
Well, okay, so this is the interesting thing about it. Okay, cool. Let's just jump right into this because I found this quite interesting. I didn't realize this because I always found it like kind of 80s as well. So apparently it was that Heaven's Gate had just detonated years before. And so, of course, as we know, fucking movie studios know absolutely nothing. And instead of blaming themselves for their own hubris, they're like, people don't want to watch Westerns. So we're never making another Western. So it was really hard to even get funding for this movie, to get it really sort of made. But originally they had James Horner do the soundtrack, and they said it came out a bit too Irish. And they said, we want something a bit more classical. And then ended up with this kind of just shredding guitar 80s kind of.
Like a Top Gun soundtrack, for some reason.
In a way, yes.
And I was feels very Bruckheimer adjacent, like the production of it. You know,
and I totally get what you're saying, Ryan. I totally get it. And honestly, when I'm watching it again, I wonder, man, what would this movie be like if we had more of a Tombstone sort of soundtrack to it? But at the same time, I wouldn't change a fucking thing.
I think it works.
Yeah,
I think this movie actually, like, what it kind of highlights for me is when people think of Westerns, especially these days, the image is like a town in the middle of nowhere. There's maybe 13 people in the town. All your actors are over 50. It's always going to be very slow. I think of movies like Appaloosa or something like that, where it's like, it's not bad, but, it's like Westerns are for old people. So we cast old people. We make them very much in an old style and for as little money as possible. But what this movie highlights is, the actual problem is you don't have young people making these movies, and you're not like trying to make them exciting, and you're not casting people who are in their early 20s to play like these gunslingers to make it more appealing to like a younger audience. Because this movie totally plays like an 80s film, not like a Western.
You said it best. It was like The Breakfast Club, but set in the West.
Yeah, because the cast is fucking stacked, especially for the late 80s. You got Emilio Estevez, you got his brother Charlie Sheen, you got a young 21-year-old Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, who was so handsome in this movie.
McDermott and Mulroney.
Dylan McDermott Mulroney, like, who's uglified himself really well.
Could not stand him in this movie.
That's what I love about him in this one. Is like, oh man, he's just obnoxious. Then you got Casey Siemaszko, who I don't really know, but then I looked him up. He's 3D from the Back to the Future movies. He's the guy wearing the 3D glasses. Yeah. He's actually in more movies than you think. And so, like in the 80s, that's exactly the same reaction.
A young Lou Diamond Phillips too, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, Lou Diamond Phillips, just Captain. He's just a smoke show. But then you also get Terry O'Quinn from Lost. You get Jack Palance back. He's in 2 movies this week because our champion from last time is the champion of season 1, City Slickers, Terrence Stamp, Britishing the fuck out of this. And so again, I always thought that, kind of like what Will says, it's just let's make a fun, like, cowboy movie for the 80s for kids, and they're gonna have a grand old time. And then when you get into the history of it, these are all real people. This is what happened. They say until like the final shootout, which honestly went on a bit longer than they play it out in the movie. And apart from the fact of having like Jack Palance's character be a bit more of an antagonist, because honestly he just died of cancer halfway through this story.
Cancer.
Yeah, right. Lead cancer. But apart from that, no, man, it's wild that when you get into it, is just how much of this is actually how it happened and how it went down. And that was, for me, the most surprising thing, because because Tombstone feels like that. And even though Tombstone is also 90s-ing it up, making it just everyone's chewing up the scenery. Whereas, you had the Wyatt Earp, version with Kevin Costner and Dennis Quaid and Lawrence Kasdan, and that no one fucking watched because it's being like, no, you gotta, where's the zhuzh?
Yeah, this
movie is nips full of zhuzh. It's great. I think, especially like Emilio Estevez is Billy the Kid.
Yeah. He's great.
With his laugh and that way, he kills it in this movie.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of the whole movie is where Doc,
Kiefer Sutherland?
Kiefer Sutherland's character, is off trying to win over the young Chinese gal, and but it cuts to Billy the Kid. And he's like, you know what? I think Doc and we got a good rapport. He's coming back. He likes me. And it cuts to Doc, and he's like, I can't stand
that guy.
That guy sucks.
Yeah, there's a lot of like comedy, like exactly where Billy's like dancing before the whole inciting incident goes down at New Year's Eve. And then, they're like making fun, but then the guys go, well, he's the one out there dancing with girls while we're here tugging on our tallywhackers. And he's like, all right, good point. Let's, it's just,
they're all such unique characters in this posse. Like they all have such distinct personality traits, which I appreciated.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Well, it's a lot of it is based off history. I mean, honestly, when you hear about Chavez, you go, oh my God, that sounds like a ridiculous movie. It's real. So they say one of the things that like, the movie does is it sort of cuts it down to like 6 guys instead of like 11, which I can see is like, it's a proper, like, if you're making the movie, you can't, do that. And maybe there's not enough actors to do it, but
they ran out of child actors to cast.
But like, it was so fun watching this movie. I think one of the weirdest parts of this movie is one bit of casting for me is the casting of Pat Garrett, who changes for the second movie. They cast William What's-His-Face from CSI for the second movie. Yeah. But in this case, and I didn't spot this, I didn't know this until this watching when I looked into it. Ryan, did you spot who Pat Garrett was as an actor? It was in the credits right at the end. It's one of the first names in the credits.
No, I don't.
It's John Wayne's son. It's Patrick Wayne.
John Wayne Gacy? Oh.
But
Bruce Wayne?
And it's interesting because I was like, I think that for me was, I think it's stunt casting. Let's get John Wayne's son in this movie about young cowboys kind of thing, because he is honestly
saying
pretty
nepotism's been around for 40 years.
Well, it's not, but I just found like he was kind of like, of everything, kind of the weakest part of the movie, and he's only got a few lines, but he's just not keeping up with the rest of them, in my opinion. In the little bit, like that's for me is like. And then, like I said, when I did a little bit of research, I go, it's John Wayne's son. I go, all right, okay, makes sense. Everything else, though, I'm enjoying. Look, Ryan, so you were like, do me a favor, because Will and I are loving this movie. Can you shit on this movie a little bit? Come on, give us a little bit more.
No, it was just, I just wish I would have seen it like back then, because it is such an 80s time. Like I was having a bit of a like I said, I never grew up watching Westerns. I think even some of the modern ones that I watched now, like the 3:10 to Yuma or Quick and the Dead, stuff like that, kind of tickled me a bit more. This just felt a little more on the cheesier side than that, but I still had a really fun time watching it.
There's 2 scenes I particularly enjoy. One is
the peyote scene.
The peyote scene.
That's just classic. Yeah.
Caught me off guard. Anytime Kiefer Sutherland is writing poetry, great.
Yeah.
Lou Diamond Phillips with the knives, great.
Yeah, I mean,
he's so good with the knives in this movie. Yeah. Like the way he spins the knife, like as a kid, I'm like, that's the coolest guy.
Charlie Sheen's death scene, hysterical.
Yeah, the way he dies when he gets shot, he bounces forwards and backwards.
It really milked that.
Yeah. Lou Diamond Phillips and the knives thing, he was so good that honestly, every movie he was in through the 90s, he's
the big hit.
He's always a fucking knife guy, because he's like, oh, I could do knives because of Young Guns, and people like the knives. We're gonna do it. I'm like, good. Yep. Yes, Charlie Sheen getting shot is very funny. I think, Will, you were the one that said you didn't realize you thought he died a lot earlier.
Yeah, I had a memory because I hadn't seen this movie in a little bit, but I just for some reason remember him dying like 20 minutes in, like almost directly after Terrence Stamp dies. I was like, doesn't he die then? And then rewatching it, I'm like, we're like 40 minutes. We're at the peyote scene. He's here.
Yeah, it's just after that scene where Martin Sheen rides by on a horse and goes, "I love you on Wall Street."
I was gonna say, it's like, has there ever been a movie with Charlie Sheen, Martin Sheen, Kiefer Sutherland, and Donald Sutherland? Like,
no, but that's, I mean, a lot of people were saying it was kind of interesting.
Kirk Douglas and Michael Douglas. What are we doing here?
Actually, there's me shitting all over John Wayne's son, but there we go. So go for it.
Oh, there is a movie with Kirk Douglas, Michael Douglas, and Michael Douglas' son. And they all play grandfather, father, and grandson. It's not a good movie, but it's worth it watching just to see 3 generations of Douglases.
Interesting.
Can you tell me the name of this movie? Okay,
it's
let's
them
see.
on a boat, like I think they're on a fishing trip or something. It's cute. It's
Gone
not the worst.
Fishing 3.
Yeah. But
Douglas.
yeah, I can't remember because Michael Douglas' son does not act anymore. I think this is like one of his only acting credits, and I think they made the movie purely to be like, we can get 3 Douglases in this movie.
Yeah.
We'll make $1 trillion.
The tax price alone.
I found a movie. It's called "It Runs in the Family."
That's
a
it.
2003 American comedy drama starring Kirk Douglas, Michael Douglas, and Cameron Douglas, who play. Wow, and real life mother to Michael Douglas plays the. Okay, wow,
Yes.
they just
It's
said,
the whole
guys,
family.
let's
Yeah.
just get the whole family and make a movie.
There's a movie, if I'm not mistaken, called "It Runs in the Family," which is essentially a sequel to A Christmas Story. Like, it's the same family, but it's not a Christmas movie.
Oh my god,
What?
that will be
Is
a
that-
movie I will not watch.
Runs in the Family
think-
Christmas Story?
And is it like I think Charles Grodin plays the dad?
Hang on, I'm looking this up. It's called My Summer Story, maybe. No, yeah, no.
swear
Okay, so there's a movie called There's
Runs in the
there's My Summer, originally released in theaters as It Runs in the Family. Holy shit, Ryan! Well
Oh,
done.
there you go.
Okay, it's a 1994, directed by Bob
it.
Clark, sequel to A Christmas Story.
That's right.
So
no
weird.
shit.
It's actually about a family that all gets diarrhea together. Runs in the family.
Well, I never heard of that one.
Yeah. Okay.
Charles
my
Grodin,
God.
Mary Steenburgen, and Kieran Culkin as Ralphie.
Yeah. Academy Award winner.
Christian Culkin, and so another Culkin in there. Wow, what a random pull!
Yeah,
Good for you, man.
I never knew it as My Summer. Because that Christmas Story, I guess it was always It Runs in the Family to me. I wonder if it was like direct to TV or something like that. But
Oh, it's definitely.
great. That's it. I remember really enjoying. Now I got to go back and rewatch that. Just like that nostalgia unlocked in me.
Wow. Is it canon to a Christmas Story 2 that just came out a couple years ago with
Two Christmas, Two Story.
Yeah. It was released in theaters. It made $71,000. Wow, what a random pull,
Hell
man.
yeah.
It was again just like when I was a latchkey kid, so like I was just watching whatever was on HBO, and it was just they would repeat the same films like week after week, and that one was probably just on constantly. I remember there's a bit where he's trying to earn money to have these like because it was in the I think in the 50s or mid 50s, but he's trying to raise money to purchase like these tops that you would battle. Think of like a
Crossfire?
Yeah, no,
kind of like
I know what you're
they
called.
would like put the string around it and like
Yeah,
throw
yeah.
the top.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
that was a whole thing about the movie, and he had to get this like raising money to get this one elite top. God, I gotta watch this movie again.
And he's not because he'll shoot his eye out with it.
Yeah, it's about him getting another toy. My God.
Yeah, we're original, right? All right. So actually, a quick one, Ryan. Did you spot Tom Cruise in this movie?
I did not. No.
Will, did you spot Tom Cruise? Have you ever spotted Tom Cruise?
No, I have never spotted him, but I know he's there somewhere, right?
He's in there. He's in the movie twice. He's got 2 shots. It's
he plays the Asian woman.
That's right. Yeah, it's one of his greatest performances.
Wow.
No, it's right in the final scene. So, like in the final scene, we're bouncing around here, but you know what? It's the podcast. Because it's something that I want to talk about. Actually, is in the final scene, the guys they burst out. And they have this kind of shootout. Now, it's when Casey Seismako, whatever his name is, comes out and he's like running down the stairs and he's shooting. I think it's the 3rd shot goes into Tom Cruise. So it's Tom Cruise with giant mutton chops, huge kind of like fake nose kind of vibe, big mustache and stuff. And he pulls it out and then
Johnny Depp in 21 Jump Street.
Yes.
guys.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's Tom Cruise instead of like heavy. He was just visiting the guys on set that day. Never been in a kind of movie like, he's like, let me do it. Get shot.
Cool.
Cool. So you look it up, you're going to be like, actually, let's see if I can find a picture while we're doing this. But it's like, it's just one of those like those random little things that we used to talk about when we did Young Guns on EPAD. But another thing that I really liked in that final scene is the artistic decision to when a bullet's going to hit one of the guys, it sounds in reverse. So you hear it coming, the bullets go. And so it's just like such an interesting like choice, but I'm like, why? Again, love it. Wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise in Young Guns.
Yeah, you can barely see his face in these stills.
Let me see. Ooh. And then,
I'll have to
oh
pull
man,
up the 4K again and
yeah.
see if I can find it.
And then, yeah, I mean, this movie, it blew up that they made a sequel. Here we go. Let me see. There he is. Let me see if I can share the screen for you, Will. Share. Boom. You see him?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
He's the black box.
Yeah. It's crazy that they stopped the movie to show that.
It's one of those just random little things. Is that Tom Cruise is in that movie as well, which I very much enjoy.
Wait, what was he on set for? We're just hanging out.
Yeah,
was he filming something else.
He was. No, he just dropped in to see the guys because he knew the dudes.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Yeah, I want to do that." All right, so Ryan, what of this movie did you enjoy? What?
Oh, I did it. I did enjoy it, but I'm just saying I probably would have enjoyed it so much more had I seen it growing up.
Right.
Like watching it now, I'm like, it's a fun time. Like, what is the sequel about? Is my question, because statistically, I would have seen that first.
Yeah, right. Well, the sequel's interesting. I think it's way less historically accurate. It's got to be.
Young Guns in space.
It depends on your. So the first movie, goes through the historical sort of like Billy the Kid, the whole thing, like the Lincoln County War kind of stuff, right? So not long, in the late 80s, early 90s, around then, there was this guy. Okay, yeah, it's a man who in the 1950s. It's the story of Brushy Bill Roberts, who in the 1950s claimed to actually be Billy the Kid. He was a really old guy, and he goes, "Look, I'm Billy the Kid. I faked my death. I'm the dude." And so it was kind of their impetus to be like, "All right, well, why don't we explore this? Why don't we explore?" And so it tells more of the story before before Billy gets killed, because Billy gets killed by Pat Garrett. So that's why that scene in the movie when Billy turns his back on him and he goes, "Pat, are we friends?" And there's kind of like a pregnant pause. And he's like, "Yeah, we're friends." But it's because later on, historically, is that Pat Garrett shot him unarmed in the back. Kind of stuff. So it was kind of like a little nod. Because if you're watching it and you don't know the history, you're like, okay, what's going on here? But
it is weird that it's like a Marvel-style Sam Jackson cameo in the Old West that's only for like Old West history buffs. And if you're not familiar with it, it does kind of stop.
It's for dads to like nudge their kids and be like, "Huh? See, I know this."
But if you're unfamiliar with history, you're like, the movie got weird for a second. What's going on?
Yeah.
But yeah, the sequel, I like it. I don't like it as much as this one, but
yeah. Oh, I like it too.
But it's fun. It's definitely worth watching.
The one where Charlie Sheen comes back and drives a Dodge Turbo Interceptor.
Yeah, yes. That's exactly. It's exactly the one. And it's like it brings the guys back. It had a John Bon Jovi song, which is one of his absolute bangers. Coming down in a blaze of glory. Of course, it's being early 90s and you need a handsome sort of dude. Christian Slater turns up in the movie as well.
Who from the original film is also in the sequel?
Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips. So the guys that survive,
all survivors,
come back.
It's impressive that they're like, "Hey, we're doing another one." I'm sure it came out 2 years after.
It did. It came out 2 years after the first one. The reason being,
this made so much money that we got to make another one.
Well, of course, it's the law of the law. It was an $11 million movie. Like I said, they had to get that money together because it wasn't easy to finance. Made nearly 60 mil, which in 1990 or 1988 is a lot of fucking money. Then by 1990 the sequel's out. Alan Silvestri's doing the music. John Bon Jovi standing on the top of the Grand Canyon while doing a guitar solo. It's like, it's cool.
The second one is definitely like where the studio is like, "Oh, this is a hit, so put money in it." So the second one is like a little grander and a little bit more polished than the first movie, but the story is a little bit more, from what I remember, a little more fast and loose. It's not quite as tight as this one.
A different director too.
Yeah.
I mean, so for example, this is quite interesting. So, being that Englishman in Texas, I like to get out on the road, and I've actually done a number of times. I've worked with the city of Eastland, Texas, not far from me. It's a couple of hours away. But that's actually where Doc Scurlock went retired with his wife and died at the age of 80. But in Young Guns 2, his character does not make it because Kiefer Sutherland was like, I don't have time for this, because he's just like, you know, in the late 80s, he's just blowing the fuck up. You know what I mean? Because he was the youngest guy on set in this one. The guy is 21 years old with a hairy chest and a full beard, more than I have now. Like he was.
He looks my age now.
He does. Like I was like, dude, he is. You're at least 30. But yeah, so things like that, and like Chavez. So it's, you know, again, like Will says, it plays fast and loose with it. It sort of. It doesn't suck.
It's just fun. It just adds to the charm of the film. Like,
it's definitely worth watching.
It's like, you know, someone is retelling a story and they're kind of being a little loosey-goosey with the facts.
Yep.
And
it makes it better.
I remember actually during the pandemic, because it was announced that there was talk. Estevez mentioned it.
Young Guns 3?
Yes. Young Guns 3, alias Billy the Kid. And they were definitely in the works. And Lou Diamond Phillips and Christian Slater were talking about
Billy the Kid is just an old man.
It's just Billy the Man. Billy the Gramps.
Billy the guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, there's, you know, you're watching this movie, some interesting stuff. It's like, well, one, all these guys are like riding their horses, and they're honestly, the director, like Christopher Kane, who is the the stepfather to Dean Kane, apparently, is like these
the best Superman.
They were like, you know, he had to call them out because they were just like, they were riding too fast, too wild. They were having way too much fun. And then kind of another interesting thing is that like a lot of like the gunfights weren't choreographed. It was just kind of like
they did seem a little kind of not sloppy, but just on like
it's let's see where the gunfight goes and stuff like that. And there's a couple of times firing guns very close to those horses.
I was gonna say thank you. I'm like, because you see that in a lot of movies. I'm like, how are these horses just super chill with gunfire like that close to their fucking heads? Even if it's a prop pistol or whatever, like how is that a thing? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think
train these fucking horses to just,
because there's that one scene right after they've done the peyote where Dylan McDermott Mulroney has his shotgun and sets it off very close to and you see the horse jump.
Yeah, and
you're like, whoa. And actually, like, I remember something I was reading about it. I'll see if I can find it actually, but it was a little bit about how they'd added stuff to them, because this is so 80s. But again, considering the Rust joke that we made earlier, but they were adding stuff inside the guns to make them louder. You know, and during one of the shootouts, I know that two of the guys got kind of hit. I'll see if I can find that information. You know, again, considering that it wasn't long before we got, you know, The Crow comes out only a few years later. So it's just crazy that you watch
for a bunch of regulators. This movie is pretty unregulated.
Well, there you go. Speaking of, that was, you know, Ryan, how did you feel about that moment when
I said on the text, I was like, oh, it was the first time I've heard that line not from the song, like actually in context. I was like, oh, okay, that's an interesting choice to use this movie and that line as the baseline for one of the most iconic hip hop songs of the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild to me. Is that because, you know, I'd seen the movie, and then of course when I'm like, you know, 14, 15, well, Nate Dogg comes out and we're all, you know, even us British public school boys at boarding school, did I mention that? Are completely into that sort of thing. And then I rewatch Young Guns and I'm like, wait, what? It's like, it sounds like it's some
to a point where I had to question. I'm like, holy fuck, was that song made in conjunction with this movie? Like, was that on this soundtrack?
You were just waiting for the song.
I swear to God, I was like, I mean, it makes sense. I was justifying. I'm like, it's called Regulators. It's what they're doing. There's no way the movie came first and they just based the song around that. They had to have made the song for this movie. And I was wrong.
That would have been hilarious. Like,
I know exactly. During the final shootout, if
honestly,
that just kicked in, I would have loved it.
If it was in like the early mid 90s, probably would have happened.
You know? Yeah, and the world would have been better for it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it. Another interesting thing as well, like I said, when it comes into sort of like the realism and stuff, is that there's a bit where like the papers are getting it wrong, and it's just a throwaway line by Emilio Estevez because I'm not left-handed, and apparently it was due to the way that pictures were taken back then. It would reverse things, right. So a lot of people thought he was left-handed. It's like interesting because we just come from a movie about the media, you know, spinning things and getting it wrong, and then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bullshit. And then you get into this movie, and then all the stuff that's being written about Billy is bu you know, and it's like they've even got the wrong guy. They got Charlie Sheen. I can understand why they'd put the wrong brother. You know, fundamentally they look pretty similar.
They're close. Yeah.
I was watching this movie. I did make me wish for like National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon, but in the West. I like same kind of thing. Just
Loaded Weapon 2. They bring back.
I would watch that shit,
right? I guess great. Like A Million Ways to Die in the West is kind of like that, but
yeah, it's no Loaded Weapon 1.
No.
Okay, well, here we go. During the shootout at the bar, yes, ammo blanks were packed with ceramic plaster for a louder sound. Great call, guys. And one Emilio Estevez was hit in the face, causing them to stop and Dylan McDermott Mulroney was also shot in a shoulder blade. Like, fucking hell, guys. I mean, there's realism, but there's realism. And then there's a bit like, okay, during the peyote scene, there's a bit where you remember like you're seeing Lou Diamond Phillips is trying to find his way, right? And so he's turning around in different directions. I noticed he was like being very deliberate in his movements, and I thought, oh, that's a cool choice. It's because he's 30 feet up and he's terrified of heights. He's just trying not to fall. Kirk Douglas would have done that, no problem. He would have,
exactly.
Then he would have slapped a woman, had a drink, and died.
Yeah. God, that peyote scene, like that, it just... Kiefer Sutherland's reaction in that, like when someone like shoots the branches right next, is so funny to me. Where he just shoots in like a second or two delay, where he's like,
that's what I like. Is this movie isn't afraid? It isn't afraid to do
fun.
Comedy.
It was fun. It's a fun
like,
movie. Yeah.
Dermot Mulroney is like, I'm just saying it's chicken, and like you know, Emilio Estevez like pulls the gun and it goes spinning off, and like he's just like it's got great sound effects as well. Whenever the guy's spins something. You know, I just the movie makes artistic choices that are so 80s, and like Ryan, you are so right. As it's just Ollie's gonna be just all about this shit, isn't he?
It's just
I picture a young you watching this wearing a fucking cowboy hat with little cat pistols.
Yes, and yes. Had those too.
This is last week.
This is probably, you saw this movie about an Englishman in New Mexico, and you were like, "Hey, wait a second,
I've got an idea."
Terrence Stamp was your favorite character.
Yeah. So that's one of the interesting things. So I think Terrence Stamp is great in this movie, but the actual in the reality, John Turnstile was 24. So they aged him up to be kind of like a. Well,
actually, that's what 24-year-olds look like.
The other guys are
Rich
11.
life was hard.
Yeah. So it was kind of like a straight up like decision to make him a bit more of a father figure. To the guys kind of vibe, which I can see like in the movie does work. I kind of like that choice, but but they were like the way he was killed, all these kind of things. Apparently, this is really like how it went down. Though I do like the interesting thing about like the way it wraps up, I think is quite cool. It's also kind of cheesy, but I love it. Where you've got kind of Doc like doing the voiceover. You learn that Terry O'Quinn's wife is the one that goes on to become like the biggest because Terry O'Quinn's death totally unnecessary. He's holding like a thing, and then they like guys hit him with the Gatling gun, blah 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 blah. And I'm like,
annihilate the dude, and it's like he's the lawyer. What are y'all doing?
Maybe they shot that scene first, so Charlie Sheen is like, no, I have to have a better death than that one.
That was
Terry O'Quinn just kind of falls over. Charlie Sheen gets hit once in the chest, and
it's great. It's almost as good as Marion Cotillard's death from Dark Knight Rises. I don't know why they kept that taken. It's fucking terrible.
It reminded me of like Willem Dafoe's death in what was it? Where he's
Spider-Man?
just fucking blasted like, in slow motion.
I don't know. Which
Florida Project?
Speed 2? Cruise Control? Platoon.
Platoon.
Oh, Platoon.
I was going to say, no, Streets of Fire. Well, like, it was that Charlie Sheen scene. It's like the slow motion of it. It was just very, very funny to me.
Actually, but I did like that scene running up to it. So it's like this guy rocks up, old dude riding a horse. He's like a legendary bounty hunter. And he's like 7 guys or 6 guys drawn down on him. And he's like, well, I got 150 for your head, and you guys are just 110, but I'll take it anyway. Let's dance. And he just opens fire, and I'm like,
blasting. Yeah,
I was like, this guy.
Kiefer Sutherland gets shot in the hand, and then, like after all that, you see him like he's like I can't even do this anymore. I'm like, see you guys later. I gotta see a Chinese woman about a horse.
And then I like that they keep that going through the whole movie. You even got later on, he got a big hole in his glove as well, which is pretty cool. I love watching this movie, and I love watching Ace in the Hole. And you know what? Yeah. This is a pretty fucking strong week because, like I said, guys, our world champion of America from last season was Will's favorite movie, a movie that we honestly all considered a perfect movie, City Slickers.
The Predator.
City Slickers. Now, that's a movie, very New Mexico, shot a lot in New Mexico. Granted, it's got kind of like a sort of spin, but we've now got a 1950s movie very much set in New Mexico, very much shot in New Mexico, and we've got Young Guns, which was, again, I was getting into the locations and stuff, and the way that they were they dressed up some of these smaller towns to look very accurate, and the places that they shot them, and the history of it all. We've got New Mexico dripping on all of these movies.
I was just thinking, if this was like a National Lampoon style loaded weapon Western, the horse and carriage would pull up and you would get a New Mexico license plate. I was just thinking. I was just thinking that Young Guns is the only movie that didn't have a license plate in it.
But it's literally Ace in the Hole. The opening shot is the side of a thing saying Albuquerque, towing company or whatever it is. Now, I personally,
Albuquerque Douglas.
Wait a minute, son of a bitch! I can't believe I didn't make that joke.
That's the T-shirt. There we go.
Is that no? Is what I wanted. Is so I have a favorite, but I don't want to tip my hat too early. So I'm going to go Will. Will, let's start off with you, buddy. Especially because, we are also trying to dethrone your favorite movie.
And the winner of the Grand
most American
Universal
movie.
Champion.
Well, the conceit of our podcast is what is the most, best representation of the state. So this might be a week where, City Slickers up against these two. I don't know if it holds up in that regard because Ace in the Hole is just so New Mexico. It couldn't be more New Mexico. Granted, it's a New Mexico of the 1950s, but Young Guns is New Mexico of the 1870s or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
but further back. So. And both are, kind of dusty, deserty areas. So it's not like you could say you get more of one type of New Mexico than you do the other. So that argument doesn't quite work. I guess in my gut, I'm leaning towards Ace in the Hole just because not only is it very New Mexico, but it also is making a grander statement about America in general, like a big aspect of America.
I wanted to ask too that because you said it is based on a true story. Was that true story also in New Mexico?
I don't think so.
Floyd Collins, no.
I thought it was
Kentucky.
Kentucky. Oh, I'm thinking something else from Utah. Yeah.
Kentucky. It's interesting for them to set it in New Mexico.
I'm sure that was for filming. They got a better deal. I'm sure they were like, we can't shoot in Kentucky. Fine. What's the next closest? New Mexico. Great.
That's where you get most.
It's also. True, but I'd also say it kind of works in the story of he's been fired from 11 newspapers and now he's at this. Where's the dustiest middle of nowhere newspaper he can go work for? How about Albuquerque, New Mexico?
Somebody was like, "Where's that place that Bugs Bunny's always making the wrong turn at? Let's set the film there." Albuquerque.
Okay, so Ryan, what about you, man? So we've got one vote for Ace in the Hole. He thinks he's got an ace up his sleeve.
See, I'm not as versed in the history of the Billy the Kid saga and all that. So I can't.
You've seen Young Guns, so yes, you are.
I was saying, I was going to ask you, who was your favorite Billy the Kid representation? Is it Young Guns? Is it Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure? Is it Leonardo DiCaprio in The Quick and the Dead, who just plays the kid? But come on, we know who's to say?
Go on, Ryan. Go on, put it what are you thinking here?
I mean, for me it was Ace in the Hole for sure.
Really?
Just because that felt the most to capture the spirit of that that town, even that it's a small town outside of Gallup or Albuquerque, but I don't know. I like that it was a Western, but not in the traditional sense like a Young Guns was.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm tipping my hat now. So for me, I was leaning Young Guns. And but not for that reason. Not because it fucking rules, but because the one thing that separates Young Guns from the other two. City Slickers is just, an adventure, that uses New Mexico, and it's great. And I'll probably watch it again later today. Now I think about it, because it's putting a smile on my face just thinking. But also is that, like, as much as Ace in the Hole is based kind of off a story, they put it in New Mexico, is Young Guns is New Mexico's history. And the thing is, like, the way that I see it is like I said, is that I was most surprised about how I always thought it was just a bullshit movie that's kind of fun because it's the 90s, it's the Brat Pack, it's the 80s, whatever. But when you really get into it, is actually how these are all real people in real places, and it's really how it went down. That's my argument for, if it's going New Mexico, because as much as I am completely in agreement about Ace in the Hole, it's great, and it's New Mexico, and its setting, and its vibe, and its production value, and everything. It's just, for me, Young Guns is telling actual New Mexico history.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah,
that
we've also never seen the sequel Ace in the Hole 2 When Nature Calls. So
that's right. Exactly.
A pair of aces or something like that.
Yeah. Smoking aces.
Smoking aces in the hole. Oh my God.
Yes. Okay. So now I've thrown a little bit of spanner into it.
Right.
What do you think?
You make a great point. I mean, not to say that it is very historically accurate, but it's based on real people that really lived versus just
inspired by.
And I went looking up. So while I was, as Ace in the Hole was kind of wrapping up, and I'm like, because I was really liking Ace in the Hole, and I was like, okay. But I was like, but all right, Young Guns is sort of like historical. So I went and looked up the shooting locations, and like, because I kind of wanted to hear that Young Guns was shot in like California or stuff. And no, they've really, like, they put the effort in. It's a lot of New Mexico.
Oh wow.
Like I said, they found these places. They're using almost like historically accurate areas, kind of thing. That I was like I said, I think what throws me is the 80s guitar. I think, like I said, if you had a more classic Western, you just assume, all right, they're fudging this. This is bullshit. But no,
and I think too, like, I do appreciate that. You watch modern-ish like Western films, and everyone's teeth is like way too fucking perfect. But you get some really fucked up.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Some yellow teeth
for casting like young actors that still like just didn't feel dirty enough. Like. Again, I just watched 3:10 to Yuma recently. I'm like, you see Ben Foster's character in that, and he's just
the grossest he's ever been.
But like this, they're still a
so
bunch
good
of
in that
pretty
movie,
boys.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, they are pretty boys, except for Dylan McDermott Mulroney, who he genuinely like uglifies himself to the point of
they went out of their way to make him look like a goofus.
And he's just like he's packing like so much tobacco in his mouth, and he just talks like.
It's more tobacco than mouth. Yeah.
The introduction scene to all these characters when they're sitting at Terrence Stamp's like house, and he's trying to get them to read.
Oh yeah,
I like that. And he's such a dummy.
I like my favorite actual line. It's great actually, and it's So Billy's turned up. He's looking after the pigs, and he's telling some history. He goes, I got away with cattle, and Casey, what's his face, starts laughing, and like Terrence Stamp goes, oh. Master, whatever. What's so jolly funny? And then, what's his face? Dylan McDermott Mulroney, like, they start making jokes about the hogs, and oh well, now you're doing the dirty crockery, and they're like, oh, we're sorry, Billy, we're just hacking on you. And then that's when Charlie Sheen goes, hey, Charlie, hey, Billy. And apparently everyone was making fun of the way that Charlie Sheen would say Billy. And he's like, hey, Billy.
It's weird hearing him do any sort of accent.
Yeah. Right.
But he's like, I hear there's some rumor that like you killed a man. Like, what did he do? He was hacking on me. It's one of my favorite lines. It's great. And like the other guy's like, because Dylan, like, he does that very like pronounced. Like,
yeah.
Great.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, anyway, but to rope this, steer, like in sort of like two of these movies, and we have Jack Palance in two of these.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Is what are you, where are you landing? Like, because I feel like I
agree with you. I
swayed
think
Will a little bit on that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I did. I will say I enjoyed watching Ace in the Hole much more, just because I really had no expectations going into that. I knew nothing about it. Versus Young Guns, I had this kind of built in, like, I know that it's like an 80s style Western, but I think I think you're right. I think the historical accuracy definitely bumps that up into a different category.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I
All
haven't seen
right.
Young Guns too, so
Yeah. There's a very good chance
and you fuckers
can.
wouldn't let me pick City Slickers too. So.
All right, so I tell you what, that yes, quite controversially in a way, but we have toppled our champion of season 1, which definitely opens things up for season 2. But the movie here at the United States of Movie that represents New Mexico, at least until we come back around for another season, is 1988's Young Guns, directed by what's his name again? Yeah, Christopher Kane, Emilio Estevez, Kiefer Sutherland, Lou Diamond Phillips, Charlie Sheen, Dylan McDermott, Mulroney, Casey Ciesimaco, Terry O'Quinn, Jack Palance, Terrence Stamp. It's a banger. I enjoy it very much. And if you want to watch it, you can find it in my movie collection because I already own this movie. But that being said, because it is New Mexico, a lot
for now.
Yeah,
right. Yep. We will.
It's going to be New Old America. But yes, there are, quite unsurprisingly, an absolute shit ton of movies made in and about New Mexico. And I wanted to sort of before we move on to where we're going next week, is what are some of the movies that we almost chose? Just looking, there was one that I remember trying to get you guys into, which we'd never heard of, which is called White Sands, which has Willem Dafoe. It's directed by Roger Donaldson, Samuel L. Jackson, Mickey Rourke, Mary Elizabeth Mastrillonio. And I was like, never heard of it. I'm in, because I love Roger Donaldson as well. We've had him on the show a few times. So that was one that, considering I'd never heard of it, I was into. But is there anything else that you guys can think of that, maybe if we circle back around? I know you mentioned Appaloosa, Will, but you didn't do it with much, you were more like Appaloosa.
Yeah, it's fine. It's not. It's, of all the Westerns I've seen, it's one of them. I know we had talked about Andromeda Strain, but I feel the same way. That's a very boring movie.
We were going to pick Natural Born Killers too, but and I think a lot of it is filmed in New Mexico, but
yeah, I'm interested maybe next time around another Western, High Noon, which is a classic Western, but I like it because it's kind of the first movie that takes place in real time. They say, the villain's going to be here in an hour. And in an hour from that point, the villain shows up in the movie.
Hitchcock shit. That's cool.
Yeah. It also has got Lee Van Cleef as bad guy number 3.
Ooh.
So it's the coolest guy you've ever seen in your life is in the background, a background henchman with no lines.
Much like Tom Cruise in this movie.
Yeah. It's a funny movie to watch because the guy that casts the villain is such a nothing, white, doughy guy. And you're like, what? Lee Van Cleef is right there. What are you doing?
So this is an interesting one. Never heard of this one. 1986 TV movie about a motley group of passengers taking a stagecoach from Arizona to New Mexico. It's called Stagecoach, but listen to this. It stars Willie Nelson as Doc Holliday, Chris Christopherson, Johnny Cash, and Waylon Jennings.
Jesus.
Yeah,
that sounds like just a music video. Yeah.
That was a new one there. Anything else that we can sort of see? I
watched it 2 days ago and completely forgot that it was set in New Mexico, but The Guest from 2014.
Oh, that's your favorite movie.
I love that movie so much.
We are definitely doing that next time.
I like that. That's a good one as well. And then you guys were joking about El Camino. But I've never seen it, so I only have to watch the entirety of Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul.
Yeah, you gotta watch them all.
It's funny now that that show single-handedly made you think of New Mexico, you think of Breaking Bad. If you've seen that show, it's just so synonymous with it, and it is completely shot and filmed there. The culture, everything about it.
We've got another Kirk Douglas movie here. Lonely Are the Brave. We've got, like I said, New Mexico's got a lot, but I must say, this only because it's got the best title I think I've ever heard. It's a 1970 American comedy revisionist Western film starring Frank Sinatra. It's called Dirty Dingus McGee.
They call me. I've heard of it, but that's It.
It's not in Will's Criterion collection.
Nope.
What qualifies a movie to be Criterionified?
Will has it, I think.
Yeah, if I like it, or if it's a Japanese sci-fi show from the 90s, then that's how it ends up in my collection.
No, but seriously, actually, how does the Criterion Closet work? It's just a bunch of just like guys who decide we know more about movies. Go, guys.
What's the criteria for a Criterion film?
It's either got to be Ricky O, or it's got to be slightly worse than Ricky O. That's how it becomes a Criterion movie.
Huh. Well, actually, but you weren't joking about that, because you were on the text thread and you joked about Ricky O, and like Ryan's like, ha ha ha, and you're like, no, motherfucker, it's in there. I was like, what?
So like, how does that happen? What qualifies a movie to be added to the Criterion collection?
I don't know.
Like the idea that it's some sort of, Raiders of the Lost Ark vault where these movies are stored for future preservation, and Ricky O is just in there.
Yeah.
So here we go. All right, I'm looking up here, right? So Criterion Collection is an American home video distribution company that focuses on licensing, restoring, and distributing important classic and contemporary films. It serves film and media scholars, cinephiles, and Will Hirsch. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Had to pay big bucks to get my name out. Right.
That's right.
So honestly, it is actually just a bunch of guys that love movies, that love really, really good movies. But it's like, no, sometimes a Ricky O is a run. It's just people like going, look, if you love movies, we love movies, and we're the bangers.
It's just so funny to me that one movie, like that movie, made it.
Which is wild.
I mean, it's understandable, but
it's killing me seeing it on, because I watched it as a house here on Criterion, and it was killing me because the Janus Films logo comes up before it, and I'm like, this is way too prestigious. This is like when the Blues Brothers show up.
I love my favorite thing
restaurant.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Ricky O is, if you've never seen that movie, the movie opens with like 45 title cards.
Yes,
like every single production company. It's wild.
Yeah,
it shows the same one over and over and over again.
It's been so long.
Yeah,
it's been so long since I've seen that movie. It's an absolute banger. But
we're going to save it for our prison episode.
We should do a prison episode.
Oh my god,
Shawshank Redemption or something. But no, I'll tell you, as weird it is to hear about Ricky O being in the Criterion Closet. Something else that's just as weird is the champion of is it Pennsylvania? Is it that we're doing next?
Yes.
The champion of Pennsylvania from last season is Sudden Death.
Why are you fucking surprised?
Is that the time? Is that Jack Reacher? And is that the same one where we had Patrick Swayze? Was that the Pennsylvania one where he comes like, Will, I think you're still muted, buddy.
Oh, Next to Kin?
Is that the one? Yeah, it was Will's. It was that one, and it had oh my god, Liam Neeson in it as well.
Yeah.
Is that
and pasta sauce? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh
and
my god.
The head in the fridge.
Was it? No.
Next of Kin. It was next. Was that Pennsylvania?
That was. I think that was Kentucky.
Oh
yeah.
Shit. Okay.
That makes way more
sense. Well, as usual, we can't remember the third movie.
I can't remember that we watched Predator last week.
Witness, Jack Reacher, and Sudden Death.
Oh, that's right.
God, that's right. Witness. That was a great movie. Oh my god, I can't. And Sudden Death one. What is wrong with us? I love this podcast. All right,
I think we called the right choice in that one. I don't know.
So this time around, yes, Sudden Death, which has some of the best fight scenes of a guy in a.
I guess guy in a penguin suit.
It's a woman in the penguin suit.
That's right.
Monsters
in the face. Oh my god, I gotta rewatch that movie as well.
God.
All right. So interestingly, okay, so. What we are doing is kind of similar to what we did this episode. Is we're bringing kind of a classic 80s movie that one of us hasn't seen, and we're bringing a sort of a dusty old movie that the other guys haven't seen. Will, why don't you bring us the dusty movie that I'm actually quite interested in seeing?
Yes, this is also in the Criterion Collection. It's a classic sci-fi film. I think Steve McQueen's first leading role ever. It's The Blob.
Wow.
And it's awesome. Everybody is running for their lives from a giant blob. What more do you want?
I can't wait.
Movie?
I've only seen the 80s version,
the super gross remake,
which fucked me up as a kid. Like,
I only rember seeing the video cover and saying, I'm never watching that movie. I'm never
gnarly.
watching that.
It's fucking gnarly.
Yeah, no, the original is much more like, a blob, it's fun. And then the remake is just like, yeah, what if you got slowly digested by this thing? And you're I don't want to do that. No.
And it's really good, really, really good practical work in that. Like, oh man.
Oh yeah.
You really see like, oof.
Okay, well, interesting enough. So I looked it up on Just Watch, are not sponsored, that one day will one day sponsor us. But it is actually only 82 minutes, but it's available on Max. So if you have a Max subscription, guys, you can watch.
Are both of them on there? Because I kind of want to watch the 80s.
That's a double feature. Yeah.
Let me see if I can figure that
Who
one out.
Who directed the 80s one? That's not Cronenberg, is it?
You would think, but no. It's
it's gross enough.
The Blob is on Paramount Plus. If you have that one, the 80s version is on Paramount Plus. But also, this was something that actually shocked both Ryan and I. Right before we started rolling, as we were talking about what other movies we're going to bring to the table, we were looking at some of the ones that we could do. Ryan, what is the absolute classic that you're bringing to the table I'm interested to see how Will takes this one? It's a great movie.
Trading Places is one of my favorite Eddie Murphy films from that era. I mean, I adore that movie. I watched it way too young, but have such a fond appreciation for it. I think he and Dan Aykroyd are incredible in it.
Oh my god, this is hilarious. Okay, so I've just I brought it up on Just Watch to see where it is available. It's on AMC Plus if you've got it. Now, of course, when you bring up the movie, it gives you a title, it gives you the year, gives you some of the things, and it's got a clip, like a picture from the movie. The picture from the movie is topless Jamie Curtis. Actually topless as well. Like,
hell yeah. They know how to get me to watch a movie.
It's got one of my most favorite visual gags of Dan Aykroyd wearing this soiled like Santa Claus outfit, pulling a fucking piece of.
Oh my god! Yeah. Okay. Great. No spoilers. No spoilers. It also has a blackface scene that we're definitely going to be talking about. So we're going to have to try and find Trading Places. Awesome. Like I said, you can find The Blob on Max, and if you haven't seen Sudden Death, seek it out because it's just ridiculous. And
they did just release the 4K, so pick that up, everybody.
So next time we'll be heading to Pennsylvania. Join us here on the United States of Movie podcast. Thank you guys for finding a champion for New Mexico as well. That was a great one. You can also check out Young Guns if you haven't already, and maybe check out the sequel as well. So for me, you can always find more about our podcast if you want. Find us on Facebook, interact with us if you want. That would be great. You can, if you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, do us a favor, subscribe to us, but also, tell a friend. If you like, I was meeting some people just in San Antonio yesterday. We were talking movie podcasts. I was talking about, we've got some new subscribers because like I said, if you like movies and you like talking about movies, so do we. And I think, it's really, really fun doing this podcast. If you haven't rated us online on Apple or on Spotify, please do that. I noticed quite a few people have. We've got 5 stars. Thank you very much. I'll take that to the bank. You can find more from me if you like, as that Englishman in Texas, on pretty much everywhere except for Facebook, where you can find me as Ollie Pettigrew. You can find Will as Entitled Millennial, especially on TikTok, where he likes to talk movies, he likes to talk the movie industry, and of course he likes to dig into his own Criterion closet to show you some dusty movies that you definitely want to watch. And when it comes to Ryan, you can find Ryan as Rhino Digital, RYNO Digital, with his fantastic designs, his movie posters, and if you want to find some very funny comments on Reddit.
You guys didn't say shit about my Alien versus Predator versus Kramer poster.
That was I loved it. Very, very funny.
And get ready, everybody, to pre-order his biblically accurate Burt Reynolds shirt, which is coming. I've made it official. You have to do it now.
God damn.
And actually, no, and I'm saying it now, and I'm saying it on the podcast to make sure you do it. Ryan, let's start putting your stuff up, like the funny stuff up on our Facebook page. Let's just put up on our Facebook page so you guys can see it, because he does come up with
we have amazing... a Facebook page?
We do have a Facebook page. Okay. So we're going to start doing that because they're bloody hilarious and they absolutely make my day. So all right, guys, make sure you join us next week. We're heading to Pennsylvania, but from me, Ollie, from Will, and from Ryan, as always, thank you very much for joining us for this episode of the United States of a Movie podcast. We'll see you next time.